The call to far echoed faintly through the damp air of Hyderabad's old city, mingling with the distant hum of traffic and the flutter of pigeons startled from the minarets. Ahmad Raza Khan, 32 years old, stood on the rooftop of his modest home, a rolled-up blueprint still in his hand from last night's work. He was a civil engineer by profession, but at that moment his mind was far from concrete and steel. His eyes glistened with unshed tears as he whispered a laud upon the Prophet under his breath, the words warm and alive on his tongue. Allahumma Ali Allah Muhammad wa Allah Ali Muhammad. Ahmad was known in his firm for two things: his meticulous designs and his unshakable refusal to compromise on ethical standards. But those who knew him closely also spoke of something else, an almost palpable love for Prophet Muhammad. It wasn't the casual, cultural kind of love that lay dormant until Eid or Mawlid. It was alive in him, shaping his choices, his words, his patience with clients, even the way he treated strangers. His colleagues often joked that his email password was probably islaveprofit. They weren't far off. But beneath his calm devotion lay an unease he rarely spoke of. For months, he had been dreaming of the same scene: a moonlit desert, wind carrying the fragrance of Medina's earth, and a figure in white walking slowly toward him. He could never see the face, only feel an overwhelming warmth that made his heart pound with longing. Each time, just before the figure reached him, a shadow would sweep across the sand, and Ahmad would wake up shivering, a strange chill crawling up his spine. The dreams began intensifying after he took a new project, designing a bridge over the Musi River. It was an ambitious government contract, his first as lead engineer. But from the moment he signed the papers, odd things started happening. Survey drones malfunctioned midair. Digital blueprints corrupted without explanation. Workers complained of feeling watched at night, their footsteps echoing on empty scaffolding as if someone else walked beside them. One evening, as Ahmad was reviewing foundation calculations alone in the site office, the power cut out. Emergency lights failed. In the suffocating darkness, he heard it, a faint, almost inaudible whisper in Arabic. The words were rhythmic, like Qur'an recitation, but distorted, as though dragged through water. His skin prickled. He tried to tell himself it was wind in the ventilation shafts, but the sound grew louder, closer. And then, unmistakably, the voice spoke his name, Ahmad. The next morning, he visited the local masjid before work. The imam, a wise old man with silver beard and gentle eyes, listened patiently as Ahmad described the dreams and the strange events. He leaned forward and said, "My son, love for the messenger is a gift, but sometimes when Allah intends to raise a believer's rank, he tests that love through trials that come wrapped in fear. The shadow in your dreams, it is not from Medina. Guard your heart. Increase in Salah, Allah and Nabi, and never miss tahajjud." Ahmad followed the advice with a fervor that surprised even himself. He began spending long hours before dawn in prayer, his forehead pressed to the cool prayer mat, tears dampening the fabric. The more he prayed, the more he felt an invisible battle raging around him and inside him. On some nights, while reciting a lot, the room would suddenly grow heavy as though the air thickened. On others, he would hear faint knocks at his door at exactly the same moment he whispered, "Ya Rasulullah." Weeks passed, and the bridge construction moved forward despite the disturbances. Then came the night of the first collapse. A section of newly poured concrete gave way without warning, killing 2 laborers instantly. Ahmad rushed to the scene, his heart breaking not just at the tragedy, but at the inexplicable cause. The steel reinforcement was missing in that section, but he had personally inspected it just the day before. The police opened an investigation, but whispers began to circulate among the workers. Whispers of a tall, shadowy man in torn white robes seen wandering the unfinished bridge at night, murmuring verses backwards. One worker swore he saw the figure leap from the edge into the black waters of the Musi, but when they searched, nothing was there. Ahmad's dreams became darker. Now, when the figure in white approached, the shadow that cut him off had eyes, cold, burning, and filled with hatred. One night, the shadow spoke in a voice that seemed to echo inside his skull. "Leave this bridge, or I will take what you love." Ahmad woke up drenched in sweat, the smell of damp earth and rust lingering in his room. Fearing for his family's safety, he moved his wife and young daughter to his in-laws' home, but he stayed at the site in a small office cabin. One night, unable to sleep, he walked to the half-complete span. The city lights shimmered on the water below, and then, without warning, he saw it. A faint golden glow emerging from the mist, taking the form of Arabic calligraphy, floating in midair. His heart recognized it instantly. The blessed name Muhammad, glowing as if written in sunlight. The glow pulsed once, twice, and then scattered into the night. Ahmad dropped to his knees, trembling. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this was not just a dream. It was a sign, a reminder that even in the presence of darkness, the light of the messenger could pierce through. But the darkness was not done with him yet. The night air was still thick with that strange fragrance, like a mix of rosewater and desert rain, when Ahmad slowly got back on his feet. His hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what he had just witnessed. In his years of working under the open skies of construction sites, he had seen sunsets that turned rivers into molten gold and lightning storms that painted the night with jagged white fire, but nothing compared to the sight of the Prophet's blessed name glowing in the mist over the Musi River. He stood there for a long while, the cool night wind brushing against his damp forehead, until the glow faded completely. When he finally walked back toward the site cabin, his mind was a storm. Was this a warning? A reassurance? Or both? Sleep was impossible that night. He sat at his desk, the Qur'an open before him, his fingers slowly turning the pages as he searched for ayahs that could anchor his racing heart. His eyes fell upon a verse in Surah An-Nur. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth, his breath caught. That golden calligraphy in the mist, it was light. It was guidance. And perhaps it was telling him to stand firm. The next morning, Ahmad ordered an inspection of the entire bridge. He personally examined every joint, every beam, every bolt. Everything looked fine. But that evening, as the sun dipped low, a young laborer named Rafiq came running to him, panting, eyes wide with terror. "Saab, Saab." Under the eastern pillar, he stammered. Ahmad followed him to the base of one of the main supports. There, carved crudely into the fresh concrete, were words in jagged Arabic script, but the letters were reversed, mirrored as though meant to be read from a world on the other side. Ahmad could still make them out. "The bridge is not yours." His stomach turned. The police would have dismissed it as vandalism, but Ahmad knew better. He could feel it, the same chill from his dreams, the same darkness that had threatened him. That night, he called the imam again. When the imam arrived, he examined the carving in silence, then looked up at Ahmad. "This is seer," he said gravely. "Black magic. Someone, somewhere, does not want this bridge completed. And it is not just human malice. There are jinn involved." The imam explained that certain acts of envy and corruption could open doors for dark forces, and those forces could cling to places of human effort, especially if the work was meant to benefit many people. This bridge would shorten travel by hours, connecting poor communities to hospitals and markets. "Shane hates such things," the imam said softly. "But there is a bigger reason they have targeted you specifically, Ahmad." "What reason?" Ahmad asked, his throat dry. The imam looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Because your love for the Prophet is like a fortress. They cannot break you with greed or with lies, so they seek to break you with fear." That night, the imam stayed with Ahmad in the site cabin. They prayed Isha together, then recited Ayat al-Kursi and the last 3 surahs of the Qur'an repeatedly, letting the words fill the small space like a shield. Just past midnight, the wind began to howl outside. The glass windows rattled. And then, 3 sharp knocks on the cabin door. Ahmad's breath caught. The imam gestured for him to remain still. Another 3 knocks, this time slower, heavier, like the sound of stone striking wood. The imam rose and recited in a deep, steady voice. "Bismillahilladhi la yadurmai, ismahai shayan fil ardi wala fis samai, wa huwa as Samuel. The knocking stopped instantly. They didn't sleep at all that night. By dawn, the wind had died, but the ground outside the cabin was marked with long, claw-like grooves in the mud, as though something had circled the cabin in the dark. The next few days were a blur. Ahmad worked on the bridge by day, prayed, and recited by night. Still, the sense of being watched never left him. Then, one afternoon, while inspecting the western span, he saw something that made his blood run cold. On the far end, standing perfectly still between two massive concrete beams, was a tall figure in tattered white robes, its face hidden in shadow. The other workers seemed oblivious, walking right past it as if nothing was there. Ahmad's legs felt like lead as he walked toward the figure. But as soon as he took his first step, it turned its head slowly toward him. The eyes, those same eyes from his dreams, burning, cold, endless. The figure raised one bony hand and pointed directly at him, then at the river below, before vanishing into thin air. That night, the shadow returned in his dream. But this time, the desert was gone. Instead, he was standing on the completed bridge, the city lights glowing in the distance. The shadow stood in the middle of the span, whispering something he could barely hear. Ahmad strained to listen, and then realized it was reciting a lot, but backwards, each letter twisted. His heart pounded with rage. He shouted, "Astaghfirullah! May Allah curse you!" The shadow laughed, a dry, hollow sound, and leapt into the river below. When Ahmad awoke, he was drenched in sweat. The sound of that laugh seemed to linger in the room. The next morning, disaster struck again. A crane malfunctioned, dropping a massive steel beam into the river. No one was hurt, but the delay would cost weeks. The government began sending inspectors, and whispers of bad luck spread like wildfire among the workers. Some began refusing night shifts altogether. Ahmad knew he was at crossroads. Either he could step back, let someone else take over, and hope the darkness would fade, or he could stand firm, relying on Allah's protection and the strength of his love for the Prophet. That night, he made his decision. After Isha, he drove to the masjid of Qutb Shahi, an old mosque with walls that had heard centuries of du'as. There, he spent hours in tahajjud, his forehead pressed to the cool marble floor, tears soaking his beard as he begged Allah for protection, for guidance, for victory over whatever forces sought to harm this work. At the very end, he recited a heartfelt salah, Allah and Nabi, feeling each word like a spark of light in his chest. As he whispered the final, wa salam, something happened. The air in the mosque shifted, as though every sound in the city had been muted. And then a fragrance filled the space, sweet, pure, unlike anything of this world. Ahmad's heart swelled. He could not see anyone, but deep inside, he knew. This was a gift, a sign, a nearness. When he returned to the site the next morning, the workers greeted him differently. Their fear seemed to have lifted. Equipment that had been malfunctioning suddenly worked. The air felt lighter. And that day, for the first time in months, not a single strange occurrence disturbed the work. But Ahmad knew the darkness had not been defeated, only pushed back. And somewhere, in the shadows of the unfinished bridge, something still watched, waiting. For the next 2 weeks, Ahmad worked with renewed energy. Each morning began with Qur'an recitation at the site before the first hammer struck steel. He hired a young Qari from a nearby madrasa to come daily and lead a short gathering of Salah, Allah, and Nabi. The workers, Muslim and non-Muslim alike, would pause for those few minutes, and though many didn't understand the words, they said they felt calmer afterward. But in the background, Ahmad could sense something, like the faint hum of electricity in a silent room, telling him the shadow had not left. It was merely waiting for the right moment. That moment came on a Thursday evening. The sun had dipped low, casting the bridge in shades of orange and violet, when a sudden wind whipped through the site. Tools clattered. Dust stung eyes. Ahmad was reviewing some final welding joints when his walkie-talkie crackled violently, even though no one had pressed the button. Through the static came a sound he recognized instantly, the backward, distorted recitation of a lot. His stomach clenched. Then another voice broke through, one he did not know, deep, trembling, human sob. I can see him on top of the crane." Ahmad spun around toward the massive crane towering above the eastern span. His breath caught in his throat. There, standing impossibly still on the very tip of the crane's arm, was the figure in tattered white robes. The wind howled around it, but it did not move. Even from this distance, Ahmad felt its gaze on him, cold, deliberate. And then it jumped. Gasps erupted from the workers, but instead of falling, the figure seemed to dissolve into the air like smoke. The same instant, a steel cable snapped with a sharp crack, sending a half-ton of metal crashing to the deck of the bridge. Miraculously, no one was hurt, but it was too close. That night, Ahmad couldn't bring himself to leave the site. He sat in the cabin, the Imam's words echoing in his mind. "They seek to break you with fear." He opened the Qur'an, hands trembling, and began reciting Surah Al-Baqarah aloud, knowing it was a shield against Shaitan. His voice steadied as he read, and for the first time in many nights, he felt a strange warmth in the room. He didn't realize when he drifted into sleep, his head resting on his arms. The dream came immediately. He was standing on the completed bridge again, but this time it was daylight. The sky was impossibly blue, the river below calm and clear. In the distance, he saw the same figure in white robes walking toward him, but something was different. The robes were clean, radiant, almost glowing. His heart pounded as the figure drew closer and closer until finally Ahmad could see the face. He fell to his knees. It was the face he had only dared to imagine in moments of deep salah, Allah, and Nabi. The face he had described to his daughter in bedtime stories. The face that had been the compass of his heart for as long as he could remember, gentle, luminous, beyond human beauty. Tears streamed down Ahmad's cheeks in the dream as the blessed messenger smiled at him with an expression of deep compassion. And then the prophet spoke, his voice like the purest water. "Do not fear what walks in darkness. Complete what you began. For every step you take in truth is a step toward me." Ahmad woke with tears soaking his pillow, his heart pounding not with fear, but with a joy so intense it almost hurt. From that night onward, something in him changed. The strange disturbances didn't vanish, but they no longer held power over him. When the shadow's whisper came, he answered it with louder alot. When tools moved on their own or winds tore through the scaffolding, he tightened his grip on the Qur'an. And when the workers grew fearful, he reminded them that nothing could harm them without Allah's permission. One Friday afternoon, just after Jumu'ah, Ahmad returned to the site to find a group of workers gathered in a tight circle. As he approached, they stepped aside to reveal what they were looking at. Etched into the fresh concrete of the central pillar was a perfect, luminous inscription, the full Shahida, in calligraphy so precise it looked painted, though no one had touched it. The glow faded slowly as they watched, until only the faint outlines remained. Ahmad's eyes stung with tears. It was as if Allah himself had stamped the bridge with his approval. By late winter, the final phase of construction began. Ahmad worked through the nights, determined to meet the deadline. But 1 week before the planned inauguration, the shadow struck again, this time with fury. It happened just before Maghrib. The sky was heavy with low, dark clouds, and a strange stillness had settled over the site. Ahmad was on the deck when he felt it, the sudden drop in temperature, the prickling on his neck. Workers nearby began muttering nervously. Then, without warning, a section of scaffolding at the far end buckled and collapsed into the river. Through the chaos, Ahmad saw it, standing on the far bank, the shadow's eyes blazing like coals. And this time, it wasn't alone. Shapes, dozens of them, moved in the mist around it, whispering in low, inhuman tones. For the first time in months, Ahmad felt a flicker of fear. But he remembered the dream. He remembered the prophet's words. And so, standing tall in the middle of the half-complete bridge, he raised his hands and called out, not to the shadow, but to the heavens, Allahumma Ali, Allah Muhammad, wa Allah Ali Muhammad. The effect was immediate. A sudden wind roared down the river, tearing through the mist. The shapes around the shadow dissolved like smoke in sunlight. The shadow itself staggered, as if struck, then vanished into the wind. When the air cleared, the workers stood frozen, staring at Ahmad. None spoke, but their eyes told him everything. They had seen it too. The next week, the bridge was completed without incident. On Inauguration Day, as the ribbon was cut and people crossed for the first time, Ahmad stood quietly at the edge, watching. He knew the battle had been real. He knew the darkness would look for other places, other hearts to attack. But here, on this span of steel and concrete, truth had won. And deep in his heart, he knew the bridge was more than just a road over water. It was a testament to standing firm in faith, to answering fear with love, to building not just with steel, but with the light of Allah. As the sun set that evening, Ahmad walked alone to the middle of the bridge. The river shimmered below. He closed his eyes, inhaled the cool air, and whispered softly, "Ya Rasulullah, we finished it." And for the briefest moment, carried on the wind, he thought he heard a voice, gentle, luminous, whisper back, "I know." The bridge was opened, the city rejoiced, and Ahmad's name began circulating in engineering circles far beyond Hyderabad. Newspapers called him the man who delivered against all odds, though none of them knew what those odds had truly been. But Ahmad didn't care for headlines. He was simply grateful that Allah had allowed him to finish without compromising his integrity or faith. For a while, life returned to kind of normal. Ahmad spent more time with his wife and daughter, caught up on missed sleep, and even took his family to visit Medina, a trip he had been saving for years. The moment he saw the green dome, his chest tightened. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he whispered salam at the Rada. Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah, wa rahmatullahi wa barakat. In that blessed place, the months of fear, cold nights, and shadowy threats felt like distant echoes. Standing there, Ahmad thought to himself, "If I die here, I will die content." But Allah had other plans. On his second day in Medina, as he sat after far in the courtyard of Masjid an-Nabawi, an elderly man approached him. His clothes were simple, his beard white as snow, his eyes sharp and alert. He greeted Ahmad warmly in Arabic, then switched seamlessly to Urdu. "You are Ahmad Raza Khan, the engineer," the man said, not asked but stated. Ahmad nodded cautiously. "Yes, have we met before?" The man shook his head. "Not in this world, but I've been told to find you." Before Ahmad could ask what that meant, the man slipped a small folded piece of parchment into his hand. "When you return to India, go to this place. There is something only you can build." Ahmad unfolded it. Inside was an old hand-drawn map, the kind surveyors had used decades ago, showing a rural area near Aurangabad. At the center was a red mark labeled in Arabic, Dar al-Aman, House of Safety. When Ahmad looked up, the old man was gone. He searched the courtyard, asked the guards at the gates. No one had seen such a man leave. It was as if he had simply vanished into the air. Back in Hyderabad, Ahmad couldn't shake the memory. For days, the parchment sat on his desk while he tried to convince himself it was some eccentric's harmless request. But each time he passed it, something tugged at his heart. Finally, one weekend, he set out for Aurangabad. The location on the map led him down winding rural roads, through groves of neem and tamarind, until he reached a barren stretch of land bordered by low stone walls. It was utterly silent. No houses, no farms, just the wind rustling dry grass. In the center stood the ruins of an old structure, its foundation barely visible beneath weeds. Ahmad walked the perimeter, noting its unusual shape, octagonal, not rectangular. On the eastern side, half buried in earth, he spotted something, a slab of carved stone. He knelt and brushed away the dirt, revealing Arabic calligraphy worn smooth by centuries. The words made his breath catch, built in the love of the messenger. At that moment, the wind died completely. The air grew unnaturally still, and a faint scent, rose water and oud, rose from the earth. Ahmad's skin prickled. He looked around but saw nothing. Yet he felt it, as surely as he had felt it on the bridge that night, the presence of something unseen. When he returned home, he began researching. Records in Aurangabad's archives confirmed the site had once been a caravanserai, a shelter for travelers. built in the 17th century by a Sufi scholar known for his devotion to the Prophet. Locals believed it had been blessed, a place of safety for anyone in need. But in the late 1800s, the building was mysteriously abandoned. Some said it was destroyed in a storm. Others whispered it had been cursed. Ahmad knew then what he had to do. He would rebuild Dar al-Aman. As soon as construction began, strange patterns emerged, eerily similar to those during the bridge project. Survey drones malfunctioned. Workers claimed to hear voices at night. And once again, a shadow was spotted, though this time, it wasn't on the periphery. It was bold, standing in full view at the edge of the site, watching. Unlike before, Ahmad didn't flinch. He increased the protective measures from day one. Daily Qur'an recitations, Salah, Allah, and Nabi sessions, and a rule that no work would be done without beginning with Bismillah. But the shadow fought back harder. On the 10th day, a young mason named Imran was found unconscious near the foundation, clutching his head. When he woke, his eyes were glassy. "It told me to leave," he whispered hoarsely. "It said this place belongs to them." That night, Ahmad stayed late to inspect the site alone. Around midnight, a heavy fog rolled in, thick, wet, suffocating. From somewhere deep in it came a faint, rhythmic tapping, like stone striking stone. Ahmad followed the sound, heart steady, whispering a lot under his breath. The fog parted slightly, revealing a figure crouched over the carved foundation stone, hammering at it with a jagged rock. Ahmad stepped forward, ready to confront it, but when the figure turned, his blood ran cold. It was himself, his own face, twisted in rage, eyes black as coal. The doppelganger dropped the rock and lunged. Ahmad stumbled back, reciting Ayat al-Kursi aloud. The other Ahmad froze mid-stride, its form shimmering like heat waves. Then it exploded into a cloud of black dust that was instantly carried off by the wind. Ahmad collapsed to his knees, gasping. His whole body was trembling, not from fear of death, but from the realization of what he was truly fighting. This wasn't just an enemy outside. It was an enemy that sought to twist him from within, to make him betray the very love that had brought him here.